Hello, my name is Matt Kostelnik. I'm the technical manager at Ambius North America. And today we're going to talk about houseplants and decorative containers and how to stage them and how to care for them properly. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stage this plant right here in this decorative container. And before we go ahead and do that, I'm going to talk about what everything is that I'm using here. So that it all makes sense. So this is our decorative container. So if you were at the giveaway, that's what we were giving away, was decorative containers. The other type of container or pot is when you buy a plant, it comes in the pot that it was grown in, and that's called the grow pot. And of course here we have, this is going to be an indoor plant, so it's a foliage plant. This type of plant's going to stay inside all year round. And then this is a saucer. And the purpose of the saucer is when you water your plant, the plant has drainage holes on the bottom of the pot. And that water is going to come out, and you don't want that water to get into your decorative container. So we put a saucer down that is a little bit bigger than our grow pot. So here you can kind of see what it looks like. So you want a saucer that's about 1 to 2 inches or so wider than the bottom of that grow pot. Okay, and then what we also have is when we put the plant into the decorative container, it might go down too deep. And so we can put pieces of foam in there to raise the plant up. And what we don't want to use to raise the plant up, we don't want to use wood because wood can start to rot. We don't want to use anything made out of metal because metal will rust. So we want to use something that's plastic-based or foam-based. What we also have is some foam, and the foam is going to go in between the grow pot of the plant and what we call the decorative mulch. And so this type of decorative mulch is called Spanish moss. It's actually a plant that grows in trees in the southeast part of the United States. There are different types of decorative mulch. Some people use decorative rock. Some people might use fake rock or marbles or whatever the case may be. I really like Spanish moss because it breathes and it allows the soil of the plant to breathe as well. So what we can go ahead and do is start to stage this plant that we have right here. So from the get-go, you might wonder, well, what type of plant should I get? And so if it's a plant that you want to keep inside all year round, then you would get a typical house plant, a foliage plant. And those type of plants almost always are just leaves. And they typically don't have flowers on them. There are a couple that do, like the peace lily, but otherwise they're mostly just grown for their leaves. And these are plants that do really well indoors. And we're going to talk about lighting and how to select a plant in a little bit here. But in terms of your decorative container, your decorative pot, what you want to consider is how big is that decorative container? How wide is it? So this one is square, and from here to here, this one is, I think, about maybe 13, 14 inches wide or so. So we want to put in a plant that's going to fit that. And usually the plant that you put in, if we put in just a little small plant in here, it would look silly. You know, it's a really tiny plant in a really big decorative container. If we got a plant that's too big, well, you would know right away, because if you tried to put it in here, it won't fit inside because it's too wide. So you want to try to get a plant that the grow pot is maybe 2 to 4 inches, somewhere in there, more narrow, so it's actually going to fit in. But you don't want to use something really small because then it won't look right. So get the right size of plant for your decorative container. So what we'll do is first we're going to start off and we'll put the saucer in, and this is what's going to hold the plant. So the drainage saucer goes in first, and then we're going to go ahead and put the actual plant inside. And what we're going to do is we're going to see how deep that plant is. And if the plant is too deep, we want the top of the grow pot to be about maybe 1 to 2 inches below the top of the decorative container. And this one, it looks pretty good. We don't want the grow pot to be sticking out because then it won't look good. And if the grow pot is way too deep, then we're going to have to use way more decorative mulch than we need. So this one is pretty good, but what I'm going to go ahead and do is just go ahead and put a piece of foam down there so that if you wanted to raise it up, you can use any type of foam that you'd like. There's, many different types of foam out there. I'm going to go ahead and just use this piece right here, pretty small, and I'm going to put that down on the bottom. Then I'm going to put the saucer on top of that. And you want it to be stable, so if you need to put another piece of foam in there to keep it stable from wobbling around, you can go ahead and do that. Then we'll go ahead and put our plant in. And that's called staging. We've staged the plant at the right height in the decorative container. And then the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to get this ready to put our decorative mulch in. And you'll notice that there is a gap between the grow pot and the decorative container. And if we just put the mulch in as is, so here I'm going to go ahead and just put some mulch in, and you might see it just fall in. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in and see if it actually stays. It might, but it might, you could see right away, it just fell in. So you could see that when I put the Spanish moss in here that it just fell right in as I was starting to position it. And that's because of this big gap right here. And so, even if someone came up and pushed it down, it could easily fall in. So what we're going to do is find some sort of foam of some type. And if you don't have specialized foam, you could use really any type of filler material. You could even use something like crumpled up newspaper or cardboard or even pieces of styrofoam or any type of foam, just something to hold it in place so our mulch doesn't fall in. And we don't really need to worry about what it looks like because we're going to cover it up with the decorative mulch. So we went ahead and just cut 4 pieces of foam, and what we're going to do is we're going to put them in the corner. This is a square container, so again, it's just something to hold the decorative mulch in place. And we wanted this to go in with a really tight squeeze. So you really want to kind of cram it in to each of the corners. Okay, and then I'm actually going to do the opposite corner here just to kind of push back. Okay, and then I'm going to push it down just a little bit because we don't want that sticking up. And then here's our last corner. Just take a piece of foam and just really squeeze it in there. And that way we get a really good squeeze. And then what you can also do, we'll try putting it on now, and if the mulch still falls through, we can always put more pieces in. If nothing falls through, then that should be good enough to hold. So now we'll go ahead and we'll put our decorative mulch in. So I'm always like doing this bare hands. And just kind of stretch it out a little bit and just go ahead and put it in on the top like this. Cover everything up. And the thing about decorative mulch is you don't have to use decorative mulch. Some people choose not to, and that's fine as well, but if you want to add a little bit to your display, it always is a nice addition. Okay, and then we'll go all the way around with our Spanish moss, just kind of pull it out. And we want to cover all that foam, and we want to cover the top of the grow pot too, because the grow pot is not part of the display. So once we get this in, just kind of finish it off here. Kind of see what it looks like going around. Make sure we get it in those corners real well. Okay. And there we go. We have our plant completely staged now. So we've got our plant, we've got our decorative container, the plant is in the saucer raised up by a piece of foam, and then we put some soft foam or some sort of filler material in between the grow pot and the decorative container, and then on top we put our Spanish moss, and that's it.